Builders Coach Show. I'm your host, Jess, and I'm here with Kurt. Kurt, welcome.
Thank you, Jess. Good to see you again.
Yes, nice to see you too. Look, let's kick it off. I want to talk about this first topic. It's preparation, basically, okay, and the importance of preparation when it comes to really everything. But I think you and I spoke about a couple of examples and how important it is to prepare ahead of meetings, ahead of your, whether it's sales meeting, marketing, etc.
Yeah, when you think of preparation, and we're going to talk about preparation as it relates to like communicating well. Communication is marketing, and marketing equals profit, right? So, you know, if you think about it, success in business and life is about relationships, and the foundation of any relationship is trust, right? And strong, good communication is what builds trust. So it's really, really important. But preparation is sort of looking ahead, like you said. It's like forecasting, forecasting essentially is what makes our builders not only successful but more proactive than reactive. If you think of someone who's not successful in any arena in life, they're putting out fires. A lot of them created by themselves. Whereas people who are proactive, they're looking ahead. They're thinking, deciding where do I want to go, what's the game plan. They've got a 12-month plan, a 12-week plan. They plan their weeks in advance, their days in advance. And by virtue of doing that, they eliminate or reduce the number of inefficiencies and issues. So when it comes to communication, you can eliminate uncomfortable, awkward moments when communicating with a client, with a subcontractor, with your kid, your wife. If you prepare, you think through, what is it that I'm trying to get across in the communication? What are the potential responses that I'm going to get? What's the worst that can happen? And I thought it would be interesting to talk about this because a lot of our guys have a process for like sales, for example. There's a 6-step sales process that we use. And there's documentation that the builder sends out that does a lot of the heavy lifting in terms of communicating. So, there's a 12-page document that answers frequently asked questions that the client may have. So it answers 100 questions, builds credibility and trust. And then there's a capability statement or hard copy brochure they send out as well. But in between, there's conversations that the builder or his team will have with a prospective client that are really important, and there's scripts for those as well. But there's certain critical distinctions. There's certain stages where there's going to be conversations that the builder needs to prepare for. All right, they need to. When I say prepare, role play. Yeah, if they haven't had a conversation before about early builder involvement, about a value management solution, they need to make sure that when they do have it with a client or an architect or designer or a real estate agent, that it's not the first conversation they're ever having.
Yeah.
So talking to,
I was going to say, it's like preparing your elevator pitch, right? And it's you have to prepare because it's not easy in that moment when someone's going to ask you a question about your business or your process, etc. You need to have a well-rehearsed pitch, okay, and it needs to sound natural, etc. But you have to prepare in advance.
Absolutely,
and it's funny you mentioned that because I had this conversation with one of my clients also. She was a little bit nervous about the idea of doing some networking.
Yeah.
Because I told her to go and network with some key people.
Most people struggle with that. Yeah.
Yes, and I thought, well, nobody gets it right the first time, right? But preparation is key, and sometimes it's just preparing and talking to yourself in front of the mirror.
Absolutely, yeah. I've got a great example, right, of a guy that I'll explain what he did that I thought was brilliant, and also, why he did it. But yeah, practicing in front of the mirror, role playing with a friend, with your partner. We spoke about it on our AI pod. Guys role playing with AI, telling ChatGPT, okay, you are an architect, I'm going to be role playing with you, and then doing that while they're driving around. Do that 15 times, right? And that preps you as well. But here's a great example for anyone listening, right? I've got a client, and he trains in the gym, like he lifts weights. And he's been doing it for years. He's strong and healthy, and he's got a process that he follows for training. So he sort of applied those principles to preparing for his meetings is the same as ever. I have not met anyone who said, I can't wait to to reach out to some architects. It's like cold calling. Our approach means you're not really cold calling because you're turning up with a solution and just a question. You're just inquiring. You're being curious about something. And then you will, if they do see relevance, offer them a solution that's going to alleviate a lot of pain in their practice, right? In their business. So it's not like you have to have anything to be nervous about, but it's unnatural to just phone someone, right? So again, you want to be prepared. Why? Well, when emotion floods up, if you feel a bit anxious or fearful, which is just going to be, it doesn't matter who you are, it's a natural human response. Knowing what you're going to say and being prepared helps alleviate that to some degree, because otherwise you could get, and I have had some guys where I think they've told me they totally screwed the call up. So even practicing, rehearsing in front of the mirror or with someone may not be enough, especially if you're dealing with an architect who's very renowned. Maybe they're a big wig architect in the area, right? And then that could be intimidating as well, especially some of the builders. If they're just starting out, it could be something that causes you to feel even more anxious, right? So I'd recommend prepare, practice, like this guy did, that I'm talking about, that training in the gym. Have a process for doing it, and then start with maybe some of the smaller architects first. There's some little, sole trader, one-man band type operators close to retirement. Do half a dozen of those, and then work your way up to, the award-winning type architects. But here's the thing with this guy: when he practiced, and by the way, if you want a good book, Arnold Schwarzenegger's book, Total Recall, his first book, he's written a couple. His first book, Total Recall, he talks about banging out sets, right, in the gym when he was training for Mr. Olympia, and how when he went to Hollywood, he'd do 50. He'd practice the lines 50 times, literally, write it on paper. Sets of 5, do 10 sets of 5 in the mirror. And he did the same when he gave his first speech to the UN when he was governor of California, right? So that is like next level prep when you want to be world class. But this client of mine was doing the same thing. And then what he did, which I thought was brilliant, he took it one step further beyond just having conversations. He'd have conversations with his mates, we're having a beer, just chatting about, just bring it up in conversation and explain what it was to them. So you had 5 or 6 different ways of explaining the same thing, whether it's, EBI, ECI, value management, whatever it is, price shock. And then he also created an agenda using chat. And it went through, he said, create an agenda for me for this meeting with an architect and make sure it incorporates catchphrases, mindset. And there was a couple of catchphrases we thought were brilliant. I think you got them there, yeah.
Some great catchphrases: buildability, partner with the architect.
Yeah, so not just your builder, your buildability partner with the architect. So I was talking about value management, value engineering, ensuring that they work through a budget-led design. So within the structure of the value management process, getting real-time feedback on pricing as they go through the design process. That's him with the architect and one of the best estimators that he knows. What that does is it eliminates slippage and scope creep. That means, the budget's not going to match what the eventual quote is, but it frees the architect up. So the architect has creative freedom to really express themselves and, design whatever they want within that framework, within that structure, right?
There was another one that said design freedom with cost feedback.
There you go. Design freedom with cost feedback.
Yeah.
And one of the things it said as well, it said to him, start with positive energy. Say to the client, I love this brief. This is a really exciting brief. The scope of works, and I'm looking forward to, I'd love to work with you. Looking forward to working with you in this project. I mean, they had already made a decision that they wanted to explore, value management as a one builder tender process. So there was that. But because he had rehearsed with chat with his mates in the pub, spoken to 6 other architects. This architect that he met with was big wig architect, award-winning, and his business is still relatively small. So it was a big deal. But the preparation meant that he came out of that meeting on a high. He reckons he just got in the zone. It just flowed. he was able to deliver value. He used some of those catchphrases, and it was an enjoyable experience.
Nice. That's a great story. Awesome.
Yeah.
We spoke about one of your clients asking this question at the beginning of a project.
Yes.
What would I need to do for you to refer me at the end of this project?
Yeah,
right?
We've spoken about it before, I'm pretty sure, but it's worth repeating because it came up last week in a conversation with one of my clients, right? So for those that haven't heard the story, I'll tell the original story and share the question, right? So this is a brilliant question, especially when it's if you do high-end architectural builds and you're about to meet with a big client. So in this original story, it was a young builder, early 30s, meeting with a high net worth individual worth about $700 million. The guy's close to being a billionaire, and it's him, the builder. So there's this young builder, the architect, and then this client with his wife meeting to talk about potentially engaging him. So he hadn't won the project yet. And we had a coaching call before that big meeting. He said, look, he's quite nervous. He wants to prepare. He wants to make sure that he's looked at everything and he's armed with the right process, but also the right questions. So he went in with this question, which was, he said to this prospective client, right, this high net worth individual, he said to him, if you choose to work with me, if you could imagine at the end of the project, I've handed it over, what would have to have happened for you to want to refer me to all your family and friends? And this guy he had bought 2 houses in one of the high-end suburbs of Sydney, demolished both. He was going to build something just to network with his high-end business friends and clients. And this guy sat back and he said, great question. He said, if I worked with you and I was going to refer you to the people I know, and I know a lot of them, here's what would have happened. And 25 minutes, he just went through, explaining, the level of communication, the workmanship, all the things that were important to him based on his previous experience building and, what he expected. And this young guy just took notes, right? And they walked out of there, him and the architect turned to him and said, where did you get that question from? That was brilliant. Yeah. So I've shared that now. Last week, so with all my clients, like when you're going in with all my builders, I'm saying, hey, you want to make sure ask that question, because what it means is why. Someone might be wondering why is that question so important. It's going to extract what's important to that client, right? So with marketing and with sales, it's all about relevance, right? If they've had a bad experience before and it was around the workmanship or a delay on the project or overruns, they may have PTSD from that, right? So you need to know that so that you can assure them that that's not going to happen, and then show them your process and your previous client feedback or portfolio of work that demonstrates that you have a process for offsetting that thing. Just make them, you want to make them feel calm and relaxed and confident.
It's also defining the goalposts before you try. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
You're defining what's your version of success.
Yeah.
Okay. Very clearly with your client, for yourself. What does success mean to you? Okay. Yeah. Clearly defining it so that you can hit the target. Basically.
That's right. I like that actually. Yeah. Clearly defining it. And it is sales 101, right? Like we've all had a bad salesperson or like a rookie. What does a rookie salesperson do, right? They've got a product and they're sitting in front of you and they tell you everything about all the reasons why you should buy it and why it's the most amazing product, right? What does a professional, salesperson do? They ask you questions. They're like, why do you need this washing machine? How big's your family? What do? Do you play sport? They understand your specific scenario and your needs, and then they create a solution relevant to that. So it's understanding what's important to this person and then feeding that back to them. That makes that person feel understood. That gives them confidence in you that you understand them. And I always say to my guys, you want them to feel more understood than ever before in their life, right? And what people pay for is certainty. but it's also communication. So communication is not you communicating why you're the best fit for them. Communication is asking the right questions to understand what's most important to them.
So tell us about what happened a couple of weeks ago.
So yeah, a couple of weeks ago, last week, one of our builders, they do passive house, so high performance homes, passive, out of Germany, that concept, premium green technology type homes. And he went and met with a client and he asked a question because the client hadn't selected him yet, and he knew that there was another builder who's also passive house certified who this client was talking to. So he did the preparation, and he asked the question, and this client said to him, "Funny you should ask." He said, "First up, great question. I love the question, and it's funny that you should ask because that client had a friend who had just finished building a passive house. Mm-hmm. So he asked his friend, tell me about the builder that you used. So what was it like?" And that person said, the builder's great, because he was asking, were you happy with the outcome of the build? He said yes. Were you happy with what you paid versus what they said? He said yes. He said, what about the time? Were there only overruns? He said no, happy with the time. He said, okay, would you refer him to me? And the client said, no, never. Don't work with him. So he was like, why? And he said the communication was absolutely atrocious, like terrible communication. Okay. And think about that for a second, right? So they're happy with the build, they're happy with the time, they're happy with the budget, but they were like, do not work with that builder. It sounds weird, like why? It's not difficult. If you've built before, it's because the experience during the build would have been agonizing because there's no communication. They just hear crickets. They're not sure. There's all this uncertainty around so many different things. And even though it turned out okay in the end, that doesn't mean they didn't pay with a whole lot of anxiety. It's like worrying about your kid getting hurt or injured or worse, and you worry, but they were safe the whole time, and you find out at the end everything's fine. It doesn't mean you didn't go through that pain. So the client experience is so important, and that's why communication and proactive communication is marketing.
Yeah. You're so right. So the customer journey is so important. It's nearly more important than the finished product, basically.
Yeah, because we're emotional creatures. All right, like I've been through multiple renovations, and you're running a business. You've got kids, you've got pets, you've got life. Your life's full. Everyone's busy, and now you've got this renovation happening, and there's all this uncertainty, and nothing happens in a straight line. And there's horror stories, and there's without sounding too harsh, blood on the streets in many cases with how bad things are for a lot of people. Like they're just going through a lengthy design process, paying a lot of money, not even being able to proceed, having to abandon the project, or finding out during the build you need extra money that you didn't realize. So people are fearful, and they just turn their TV on and they see more horror stories. And if there's poor communication and things are changing a lot, it can freak them out. Yeah. So
I think you've got a story about network marketing.
Okay. Well, we talk about like communication is huge for building trust. As it is marketing. Marketing is selling in advance, but within marketing, network marketing is the number one medium for marketing. A lot of people these days, most builders we work with, they have great Instagram, like your Instagram, Meta website, maybe house, and then capability statements and site signs, vehicle signage. Your offline marketing, online marketing, the one leads itself to other, and all of that communicates a certain message. That's really powerful. But network marketing is still the most powerful channel. And to give an example, so we had one of our clients reach out to a interior designer, so not an architect, just an interior designer, who are great to align with, by the way, for doing selections. Like having a selections process, interior designer helps with that. And we've actually got a builder who used to offer an interior design service so that the clients could get their selections done. And obviously they can do a whole lot of other things as well. But now he just builds it into the cost. To the costings, and he doesn't offer it to them. He tells them it's going to happen because and any residential builder listening will know, like getting selections done is crucial. And if it's not done well and on time, it can lead to endless time and cost blowouts, right? So he built it. Anyway, this specific interior designer that our build met was 260,000 Instagram followers.
Wow.
Right. So that's huge, right? That's a significant influencer. She wants to engage. This interior designer wants to engage with our builder, who has a great niche, by the way, like sort of, you know, Heritage Homes, runs on the board, award-winning work. And, you know, if she falls in love with them or really likes them and connects well with them, you know, she could, you know, the transfer of trust will go on to, you know, 260,000 people. Another guy, he's got an in-house marketing person, does a lot of video, you know, and then posts on all their platforms, including LinkedIn. And they got, I think, 6,500 impressions after joint venturing with one of their suppliers, one of the major suppliers, James Hardy.
Nice.
So, yeah, networking with and connecting or joint venturing with the right people is a great way to leverage your reach to the right market.
Yeah, especially in this day and age with, you know, social media. Yeah, things, the transfer of trust happens quite quickly because it's so like visual.
Yeah.
Also.
I often share a story, like there'll be guys listening, builders listening, who they're still running their jobs and they're fearful of letting go and getting someone to run their jobs for them. But really, to run a successful business, you need to get, you know, processes in place and a quality team to run your jobs while you run the business. And part of that is networking. So we had one guy who took over a business. He was a supervisor, took over the business from his boss who retired, and he was able to get a team to run the work. He sort of overseed it still as a, yes, from project management perspective, but started networking with architects. And he didn't stop. He kept doing it and made sure he had time every week to meet with them, grab a coffee, grab lunch, whatever. He took the business to 40 mil turnover just through networking with the right people. And, you know, the last time I checked in with him, he had 40 architects that he was engaged with. And it was all, you know, nurturing the right relationships. It's it doesn't mean you don't do other forms of marketing, but it's still the number one way to leverage. Yeah.
Nice, amazing. I think you wanted to tell us one more story about a developer meeting.
There was that was just a networking opportunity that one of our guys had. He went to a networking meeting for developers. There were 24 people in the room and 20 were female. Just a little, you know, a throwback or a tie into women in construction. I found that fascinating, and I asked him why. He was like, he's not sure. I mean, it could be some were single women, some were wives of husbands, some were business owners, you know, builders themselves, builders, developers. But I thought that was fascinating, and he said very switched on as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of women in real estate also, like, and obviously development, etc. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, no, great. Have we got time for one more story?
Yeah, go for it. One last one.
Okay, communication, the theme for this pod. There's a communication tool that we use, which is just positioning clients before a build. Just explaining the rules of the game. It's called a client collaboration or client commencement agreement. Just outlines, you know, how you're going to communicate. Again, this is being proactive, looking ahead, and then communicating very clearly with the clients, ideally in line with what they want, but also making sure they understand they can't contact you after hours. They need to get selections done. You know, if they want to make a change, they can. There's a variation process and a fee and payments on time, all that sort of thing. I had a guy who was doing that, and his purpose for doing it was because he had toxic clients previously or badly behaved clients previously. And he had been instructed, you know, by another coach, a generic coach, to really lay down the law with his clients. And he was like going in with like, this is how it's going to be. And I was like, okay, respect, you know, you're setting up, you know, putting boundaries up. However, the approach that I recommend, so best practice, is be client-centric. You know, select your clients, handpick your clients based on personality, location, job type, in your wheelhouse, in your niche, and over-deliver value. And then explain your rules of the game, but coming from a loving, caring space, as opposed to being that like authoritarian, trying to come over your client. Like, you know, you get businesses that point to the terms and conditions, Like you get so Virgin's client-centric, right? And they look at their client, what do the clients want, get feedback and create things that you want. Like, you know, you go on to some of the airlines, and they'll get off your phone as if they're going to, men with guns are going to arrest you, you're going to get a knee in your back. Versus you go on a Virgin flight, they say to you, they know that, so they say, keep using your phone until the last door is closed. Because they know you want to speak to your loved ones, right, or your family. That's the difference. So be that client-centric business that then has those guardrails.
Yeah, I was going to add to that even if the rules are the same, the way when your intentions are different, you come across differently. So even if the rules are the same, hey, we don't allow this or that, the place where you're coming from is going to change the way you communicate and the way you perceived, etc.
It's like a firm but loving parent versus someone who's like psychotic, you know what I mean, where you're fearful, what's going to happen next.
Yeah, exactly. So and that it comes, your intentions, it comes across in your communication.
Absolutely. Everything. And it's not just you, it's your team, every point of communication to your clients, your suppliers, your subcontractors. That is, what builds trust. That is marketing. That's your brand, and that will impact your bottom line.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you for that. That's all we have time for today. Guys, we'll catch you in the next episode. Hopefully that was really useful. If you have any questions, just send it to us. But otherwise, thank you.
Great to have you on the call. Join us for the next one, guys. Take care.